how did you start out in music? What was your inspiration to start a career in music?
Well, I should say actually it's my parents in a very funky way because they were big music aficionados. Like my mom even more than my dad even more than my mom. We had a lot of records at home. My father was really really into jazz and funk and soul, but also into Latin music, and he was in a lot of bands playing like percussion and trumpet. So I really grew up with a father who's in a band, you know, who comes at home like really late on a Friday or Saturday morning, and a mom in church singing gospel. So they always, we were always surrounded by music, and we were also supposed to play music, but we were never supposed to have a career in music. Like this was made very clear to us. Like music was used for as a lifestyle and also for disciplinary reasons, but it was not to have a career in, because that would be dangerous and the world was dangerous and managers would like run away with your money and you would end up somewhere on a boat to Puerto Rico as a slave. Like it was really like, for them it was really like, please do not become an artist. But because they surrounded us with so much music, it happened anyway. So I started singing in bands when I was a teenager. My father was like, no, it was just for disciplinary reasons. And then it was too late.
Oh dear. Well, there you go. So, so what sort of music did you listen to that sort of inspired you when you were younger? What were your favourite bands?
Well, it has an evolvement. Like when I was born in '77, so by the time I was like, you know, old enough to sort of, you know, develop a sort of taste, it was like in the middle of the '80s.
Yeah.
So I became like a huge fan of the Nana Cherries and the Paula Abduls and the, you know, like De La Soul. So I was not into the music that my dad was listening to. Like if he would put up Curtis Mayfield or Donald Byrd or Roy Ayers or whoever, I'd be like, okay, not for me. I'm into hip hop or I'm into this and that. And also in the '90s, I was pretty much into hip hop. And it wasn't until like '95 that I just had this major, I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden I discovered what my dad was really listening to. And that's when when we totally met each other again, and I started stealing his records and finding out about all these great trumpet players. Since he was a trumpet player, like half of the records were trumpet players, and I was like, oh my God, Freddie Hubbard, oh my God, this. So I would say since like, you know, when I 95, when I was like 18, I started to dig in really into the soul, funk, and jazz, and that has been my inspiration ever since. And I remember the first record that I bought with my own money. It was actually two records. It was the Supremes for some reason, the Supremes, and it was the Rotary Connection. And the Supremes just reminded me of my childhood, and the Rotary Connection, that was like revolutionary for me. Like I'm 18, everyone around me is like a rapper or a hip hopper or into rock or whatever. Yes. And here I am discovering Minnie Riperton, and she to me is my number one inspiration.
Wonderful. So, wow, that's a wonderful story. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. That's just really great. So, do you remember the first time you performed in front of an audience? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I was 7.
Right. Okay. And can you remember what you performed?
Yeah, like, okay, well, I mean, it wasn't that serious, but it was an audience. It was in school, and I remember like the entire school was like looking at me. Like we had a real stage. It was Friday afternoon, and I decided to first do a piece on the flute because I was playing the flute, and then after that I would sort of throw away my flute, but like carefully, not to break it. Yeah. And then I just started doing Randy Crawford's "One Day I Fly Away." Well, since I'm a Caribbean girl, so my first language is Papiamento and my second language is Dutch.
Yes.
English really, at the age of 7, was like Chinese for me. So my dad had to phonetically write what I was supposed to sing. So "One Day I Fly Away." And that was like my first experience like singing, and then the teacher just, faded out the music, so you just heard me singing a cappella, and just the school was like, whoa!
Wonderful.
So that was my first experience on stage. But it wasn't until I think I was 15 that I started really performing and getting actually money for it. And when I was like 18, getting like really seriously bookings on festivals and stuff. So I would say 7 was my first, but 18 it really started to become my job.
Fantastic, yeah, and but you knew from a young age, obviously, from what we were saying earlier, that this was the direction you were going in, despite the fact that your parents didn't want you to, but you knew. So that's all good.
Well, crazy enough, I didn't know. I mean, in a way, like I knew that I couldn't live without music, because I literally could read notes before I could read letters. So for me, it was very natural to do music or to be, engaged in music. But because my parents were stressing so much that we should not become artists, I just I went to do other things. I studied. I'm like an educational science. I have my PhD. I did 15 years of modeling. But all of these years, I just made myself a background vocal, a BV, for like 15 years. So I was like telling my parents, like, I'm not really in music, It's like, I'm half in music. Don't worry. No manager is going to take my money. It's not my money. I'm just a BV. Yes, we're going to Japan. I know, but it's not, something that gets lost, an instrument, it won't be mine. So I didn't debut until I was 30 years old. Honestly, my first album came out when I was exactly on the day that I got turned 30 years old.
Wonderful. That's
yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. So, how many album releases have you had now? Then, Giovanca, how many albums have you had out now?
Well, I just released my third album in 2013, like in the fall.
Yes,
I did some other albums as well, but like these are like I have 3 that's definitely my own, and now I'm doing a 4th one in Japan, which is a collaboration with a Japanese hip hop jazz orchestra that also did an album with, for example, Aloe Black and some more, especially hip hop artists, and they're doing an album with me. Now we're mixing it up right now, mixing it down right now.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I have 3 albums in my name, and the 4th one is coming out in Asia and Europe. I think in this summer. Yeah.
Wonderful. That's great. Can't wait to hear that. That's wonderful. And you're in the UK on the 15th, aren't you, at Music Connect?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, because we're going to be there. We're going to be in the audience watching you. So
exciting.
Yeah. Well, it's a wonderful venue and lineup. It's a very very personal venue, very sort of up front and close venue, which is nice.
That's
and it's one that we go to quite a lot. So what have you got lined up for us? If that's not giving away any trade secrets, what have you got lined up for us on the 15th?
Oh, well, what can I say? It's just me having fun. It's going to be the first time for me ever to do something like this, because I kind of skipped the normal way of becoming a soloist. So I've never did a showcase with other people. I've never been in a lineup to start with.
Yes.
I just started just like going and being on tour. So this is very exciting for me also to play with another band, and in this lineup. So you're probably just going to see me have a lot of fun and enjoying the fact that I'm able to play my music with people that I don't really even know in a country that I've been to but never perform my own songs in like this. So it's going to be like, I'm just going to have a lot of fun and give it my all. That's all I can say, and make it as funky and soulful and as cosmic as I can.
That sounds absolutely brilliant. Funky, soulful and cosmic. I like the idea of that.
Yes.
I'm seriously liking the idea of that. That's great. No, we enjoy the Music Connects gigs. We've been to quite a lot of them, and they're always fantastic evenings. And the lineup this time is marvellous, and we're doing this showcase, which you're going to be part of,